Record. Awesome. Well, thank you all for coming today. We're going to talk a little bit about the traditional reporter. Before we get started, though, I did want to share some updates about, I'm sure all of you have gotten those lovely emails, maybe multiple from me about reports permissions. So I wanted to start there and then we'll go into the reporter. So we will be turning off reports permissions to anyone that does not have assigned a reports permission waiver. And what that means is your library director or designee has assigned you as a staff member, and it has to be an individual staff account. It can't be a shared account. It can't be something that you use like 5 different staff members use. It has to be one assigned specifically to an individual that they've assigned it and they said, okay, you have permission to run reports or you have permissions to run and clone reports. So if you didn't get that email and you should be, you have a large slew of templates and reports that you run on the regular, please reach out to support and or your library director to make sure that the email wasn't missed or went to their spam or something like that. So on the 5th, that's the deadline. I will need you to sign those waivers, and then we assign the permission group to your account. It usually goes on as a secondary permission, and you do get a note added to your account. So if you look at your account and you don't see the note that says that you signed the waiver, again, please let us know. And the waiver is basically acknowledging that you read the patron privacy and data policy that we released earlier this year, as well as you're familiar with the PA statute on privacy for patron records. And this is just it's a very basic, put your name, put your username, and you acknowledge that you read it. I'm trusting that you do when you check the box. So it's on your honor. So we just ask that you do that so you're familiar, because the reports, as you all know, is very powerful and you can run inadvertently data on the entire system. So we just want to make sure that you're cognizant and you're treating the data that you output of the reporter with the care that it needs. So on the 6th, if you have not signed the waiver, it's not all doom and gloom. You just won't be able to access the reporter until you sign it. So if for whatever reason you didn't sign it and on the 7th you realize you need to run your report and you can't, just put in a ticket and we will update your account once we get confirmation from your director. Any reoccurring reports that you have running will continue to run. So again, don't panic. It'll be fine. We'll just sign your thing and we will get you moving again. I do want to share, though, that there are a few things that will be happening. So after a period of time, if your account is expired, obviously, you're no longer an employee for whatever reason at the library, and this really applies more to like your colleagues or former colleagues in this instance. Once they have left, you're going to want to make sure you clone any templates from those accounts that you need, because about a year after they've expired, we're going to unshare all of those templates folders and you won't have access to those accounts unless you like reactivate them, log in, change the password, log in, clone them, do all the messy steps. So just save yourself the headache now. So when you're offloading staff, a good practice is to clone any templates and adjust any reoccurring reports to an active account. Also, if a staff account does not have the permissions to run reports, we will be hiding any shared folders after a set period of time, and we will also be turning off any reoccurring reports. So we're going to give you a couple months on those, and we will be reaching out and letting you know, like, hey, this person no longer has permissions. If they can need permissions, fine, we'll add it to their account once they sign the waiver. But we just want to make sure that we're turning off things that don't need to be continued to run and unsharing any folders that are no longer needed to be shared. Are there any questions about the reports permission component that's kind of rolling out?
I have a question, and I know
Sure.
I've asked you this question before, but I figure I'd bring it up again. So for the reports admin have the ability to clone the reports, but now the runners will only be able to run the reports.
Correct.
So, but the way we've always been taught is to clone, then run. So can you just talk about that process?
Yeah, so that will be different. So if you do have staff that are only able to run reports, they're going to be running them off of your shared folders. So those are easier to manage because you can always go into that or have that staff member go in and delete anything if you need to update the template. It is people are kind of moving in the direction of having shared templates for like a system or an individual library and having like a key person be the person who runs those like specific reports, and then everyone just runs off of those. The tricky bit is when you have like say my report folder, everybody just runs off of that, and I can never delete anything because I don't know who's using it. So when you're sharing report folders, and we'll go over this kind of when we go over the reports, be cognizant of what level you're sharing at. Are you sharing at the Spark level? And think, does everyone in Spark need to have the access to this template? If not, just share it with your system or your individual library. And then that makes kind of your maintaining of templates a little bit more manageable, if you will. Does that help?
Well,
Okay.
will the staff with runner permission have access to searching all the Spark templates, or just for the ones you have permission to run?
Yeah, they'll still have access to look at any shared templates and run off them. So that was my follow-up was, now is a good time to look at your folders and see what you're sharing, and do you need to continue sharing them at the Spark level? If you shared at a very low level, like if you shared for a specific reason, it might be good to go back and share it with just your system folks.
So then that's the system or library level in terms of staff, making sure that those staff that are running it are running just for your library or system. And even if I find a separate, like a higher level report, like through the search, but don't run off of that, essentially.
Yeah, and maybe they identify it and say, this is the template I want, and then and then you have an admin go in and clone it for them and put it in a shared folder. That'll be a good workflow.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, yes. So also along with this is we're hoping this summer, but most likely later this fall, we'll be starting the aging of circulation. So what this means, and this is part of the patron privacy and data policy, is that circulation, when you go to the checkout history or the last, few people who checked out this item, those tabs, and it has like their name and their account and all of that, and like when they checked it out and when they didn't, that will start anonymizing as part of the age circulation process 18 months after the circulation closes. So you'll see just like aged circ instead of like Mary Smith and here's her barcode. You'll still know when they checked it out. You'll still know when they checked it back in and all of that. You just won't have that link to the individual account. And it's 18 months after the circ closes. So you'll still be able to have a good chunk of time to find, missing pieces and things like that. It won't impact their bills. It won't impact anything else. It'll just be some more privacy for circulation. Conversely, though, that means you will need to use the combined circulation source, and we'll talk about sources in a minute. And I'll have some templates for you folks to use. So I just want to give you the heads up that if you want to start looking at your circulation reports and things that use circulation, you might want to start adding the age circulation source or updating your templates to use that source exclusively. So,
Elizabeth, I had a question.
sure.
When will that title still show in the members account if they have some kind of a problem with the item?
Yeah, it should. Yeah, it should.
Okay,
it
so
should
it's
still be
just
there
not
for
in the,
bills.
it's not just going to be in the item record summary.
Yeah, let me pull up my test item. I'll show you which screens I mean. So it's not going to be on this circ history. It'll be just like age circ, and that'll be it. And then this one as well. It'll be so as long as it's past the 18 months. Okay. And that just changes it'll just change how you run your reports in the future. But we will give you plenty of notice, and we'll tell you when we're turning it on, and I will give you templates. So don't panic, but I just want to start talking about it now so that it's not a big surprise when it starts happening. Katie?
And if a patron has opted into retaining their circ history, it also stays there, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So they won't be impacted. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's all on their end of things. So they're separate tables. Okay. So having said all that, let's look at reports. Do we have any questions before we go on?
I have something, but I don't, it's
Mhm.
not reports, but ILL reports. Is there a way for us, because we do the INSIP now and share it, is there a way for us to pull what we get to like the INSIP libraries? Like, is there a report for me to do to pull, or my more saying what my library checks out under that INSIP record?
Yes. Yes, I have some in my folder under ILL, and it's called
Okay.
Access Items Lent to Patrons.
Okay.
And then there's a Share It Lender report that you can use.
Okay.
But the numbers will be the same as the Share It numbers now. So either source will give you that info.
Okay. That's what I use and share it, like it'll just say this, that.
For you though, yours might be slightly different. So yeah,
Oh,
run
okay.
because you're the
Because
system.
yeah, that's what, yeah, I was trying to like, like trying to
So
like break it down for each
mhm.
one library. Is that possible or no? Will it be
Oh
all,
yeah,
okay, like a checkout, more of a checkout, who checks it out versus,
yeah. So
okay,
this is probably the one you want.
share it, okay. Okay.
If not, I can adjust it. Yes, because it runs on the owning
The owning
library
library, okay,
of the item.
okay, okay,
Okay,
thank you.
so yeah. Okay, so reports, obviously. We have two sets. We have simple and we have the regular reporter or the full reporter or the complicated reporter, whatever you want to call it. You have your search up here at the top, and you can search all the folders that are shared, or you can search either the name or the description. It's kind of a little rough, but I do have, if we have time at the end, I'll show you the reporter. This whole interface will be updated this fall with the upgrade to 3.13. So I can demo that if you would like, if we have time. And so again, you can just type in whatever terms and it'll search all the fields, the names and the description. So, and then you can kind of parse through and see which reports you would like to run. Just some things to note. These columns over here are pretty important. The UI is going to be increasingly important. Anything that says web staff, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. If for any reason the name or the description has something, let me see if I can find one. Of course, now that I want to find one, I'm probably not going to be able to. Here we go. Okay. If it says XUL or Zool, if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you'll know what that is. Do not clone this report. It will not run in future versions of the reporter, and you might not get very reliable information. So if you have Zool templates, now is a good time to start rebuilding them and deleting the old ones. If it says cloned from Zool somewhere in the description, it's running fine now, but chances are it might not run great in the future. So those are also candidates for rebuilding. So if it has Zool anywhere in here, XUL, you're going to want to rebuild it. And you can definitely, hit the clone button and kind of open this in one window and then have another tab to see, the paths and things. That's totally fine, but just, converted from Zool are not going to run really great anymore. So, or at least you have a higher margin of error. So if you have that in any of your templates, please make it a summer project to start updating those because they are not going to run great. So search is good. We have two sections. We have my folders and then we have shared folders. And the reporter is built on three components. You have templates, reports, and output. And templates are kind of like your query, your question. What are you looking for? You're looking for a list of items on a specific shelving location that haven't searched in a specific time frame. And then the report is you answering those criteria questions. It's going to be, I'm looking for the list of items on the Jew fiction shelf that haven't searched since, 2023 or 2020. And then the output is your end result, is that full list of items from your catalog based on how you answered the questions you established in your template. So you do need components or subfolders for each of these three elements for your reports or admin to run. If you're just a report runner, you're only going to have reports and outputs. So you can click on the title templates and create a subfolder this way. Here's where you would share or unshare a folder. Again, a good project for the summer when you're updating all of your templates or at least reviewing them. You can look and see or unshare folders. So you can share, and when you select who to share with, you'll have the option to share with Spark. I'm logged in at our test system, so that's who the system, or I can share with just my individual library. So we're just going to share with the Nugget Davis Memorial Free Friendly Library of PA, and we're going to create our subfolder. And it's going to let us know that the action has succeeded. And when you expand your templates with a little arrow, we will see it right here in alphabetical order. When you look at your folders, you'll have a parenthesis next to them to tell you at what level items are shared. So again, spot checking those ones shared with higher groups of libraries is a good idea. If you have subfolders, you'll want to make sure you check the subfolders too. If you need to share a folder with your system or another library in your, with the full system, you want to make sure that the top level folder is shared with the system as well as the subfolder. So you can have a top level folder that's shared with the system and then multiple subfolders that are only shared with your library or a mixture of your library and the system. So I don't think I have any in that setup, but like say I only wanted to share this circ folder with just Reading, I could change it by selecting on the folder, clicking on manage folder, and this is where you have your options to change the folder name, delete the folder, create a new subfolder, or hide and or share it again. So if it's already shared currently, you have to unhide it. You have to hide it, confirm, and then you have to go back in and you see now it's not shared, and you would go back in and share it again. And now I have to log in as Brooks. So let me do that because that's a folder they actively use. No. Hit enter too quickly. Okay. So are there any questions about sharing or unsharing folders? I could change the name as well if I wanted to from this menu.
I have a quick question. Is there a way to move a folder to a new template, or do you just have to clone it and then assign it to the new folder?
So if you can move, let me just make sure that saved. Okay. So say I have this item with monograph parts report I want, it's in my testing folder. I can select from the drop-down menu to move the selected template to a different folder if I wanted to. And it has
Okay.
to be it has to be your folder and your template. You can't move somebody else's. So
All right. Right in
Yep.
front of me in plain sight. Okay. I missed that. Thank you.
No worry. Yep. Okay. Any other questions about moving templates or folders? All right. So we have our folders. We have our names and our titles. Just a general note about folders is you want to try and be as tidy as you can. Obviously, after lots of reports, they do kind of get built up. This is my testing folder, and I periodically just go in and delete everything in it because it does get a little unwieldy. Outputs and reports, if they're not reoccurring, are deleted 60 days off after they've run off the server. So if you look at an output that you're looking for and it's not in any of your folders, the name will still display, but the link when you click it will say that it's not available any longer. So it's good to run your report and download the outputs if it's something that you need to keep indefinitely. So, but also keep your templates folders kind of tidy because it will get a little unwieldy after a while trying to move things around and such. So that is folders. Any questions before we move to like the actual templates? Sorry, I'm really bad about the chat. Let me open that. Okay. All right. I don't see any questions. So when you're building a template, and I think most of you are all admins, so I think we'll be okay. When you're well, let's clone a template just to go from there. So let's go down to shared folders. These are all the folders that everyone all across Spark are sharing. Some notable ones that tend to be reliable are anything by the Spark Reports Committee is usually vetted and tested. Katie's C. Martin admin is good. My Pales Davis, not the E. Davis one, those are older report templates. So I might ask Jess to unshare those if you don't mind. And then anything from Equinox is reliable as well, unless it says testing. If it says testing, use with caution. So let's find one from the Sparks report. So let's look at patrons and users. So say we're looking for a report. This one seems innocuous enough. Is the list of workstation names, owning library, and workstation ID. To clone it, obviously you can select the clone selected template from the drop-down menu and hit submit. If you are just a runner, you'll have to create a new template or a new report from selected template and go from there, or ask someone at your library who has the reporter admin to clone it for you and put it in a shared folder for you. So if you clone, then you obviously pick where you want it to live. And it's going to open the template editor. General rule is it's always easier to start a report template by finding one that's close to what you're looking for. It doesn't have to be exactly what you're looking for, but it has to have like a general, be in the wheelhouse of what you're looking for. You can always add fields or remove fields, but it saves you a lot of time and effort to find a template that's close to what you want and then go from there. So this one is pretty basic. It has like the name of the workstation, what library it is owned by, and then the workstation ID. Under displays, and then under filters, we're filtering it by the org unit. You have your template name at the top. It's going to always add that parenthesis clone as when you clone something. Obviously, you can rename it to whatever you like. Once you've cloned it, it's yours now, and you can do with it what you need. The template description is always kind of up to whoever built it. Some recommend being very detailed, where you kind of have the source path and like how you go down into the joins and then which column element you're picking. This helps when you're kind of trying to troubleshoot reports. So sometimes you'll see very lengthy template descriptions. You can also include a link to say like a Google Doc that has further instructions or has those path information. So if you wanted to look at that, if it's there, you can use that as well. And then the same with filters. Trying to document which filters you picked is helpful, but the display fields are the ones that you can kind of edit the column labels. So those can get tricky to identify which ones you picked when you built the template. So if there's something you need to change, you can just hit save. And it'll give you the pop-up over here that the template was successfully saved. And now it'll be in your folders and you can run it or continue to adjust it as you need to. If you say, let me find another one. Let's do a cataloging one. So let's, oh, I should note this. If the output or the list is always going to be set to 10. So if you're wondering if there's maybe more, you can expand it to 25, 50, or all. I wouldn't do all on a folder that has like is like your junk drawer or your testing folder, because it will take forever to load. So, 50 or 25 is manageable. So if you select all and it's taking a while to run, it's probably because there's just a lot in that folder, and it might prove to be easier to narrow it down to 50. You do have the page options to like go to the next page too. So if you find a really massive folder. So let's look at this one. Say we were looking for count of collection items owned by the library and the shelving location. So we want to clone that one. That one sounds close to what we're looking for. We're just going to check the box, select clone from the drop-down menu, and pick our folder. And it has most of the elements we want, but we want to add, maybe we want to add circ modifier. So obviously you have your source column here. And when you click on item, you'll see the top level table and then the different fields in that table. So say we wanted to add circ modifier. The icons are going to change in the upcoming version. So they'll be more text-based, so it's a little bit easier to understand what they are. So like if it's a date, that one's okay. If it's just the A, that's just straight text. If it's this circle with the checkbox, that means it's a Boolean. If it's a yes or no, or a 1 or a 0. Circulation library, it's going to be a tree, and that means it's an org unit. So you're going to want, if you picked just circulating library, it's going to give you the database ID instead of like the name. So this would be an instance where you would want to go to the connecting table to get that additional information. So in this case, to get to the connecting tables, you're going to click the drop-down menu or the triangle, and it'll expand the connected tables. And you're going to go down to circ modifier. And here you'll see it has name. So if it doesn't have the level of detail you want, you might need to go to a adjoining table. Does that make sense? Okay. If it is this like little 2 circles, or it's a link, and this one you could definitely have to go to the connecting table to get the info. You don't ever want to run it on a linked here. So if circulation modifier is something I wanted to add to this table, so I'm going to go to the connected joint or joined tables, and I'm going to go to circ modifier, and I'm going to pick name from here and just add it. There are options to transform, and in this case, this one is not one that we would want to transform, but say we wanted, trying to think of one that would make sense. Oh, total circulations. We would want the total circulation count, and we would pick the transform of count so that it gives you the count of them. Okay. Well, let me remove
Elizabeth,
that out. Mm-hmm.
could you explain the difference between count and count distinct?
Yes. So count is just every single instance, and count distinct are the distinct instances, sorry. So a good example is if I run this report where I look at how many circulations take place in a time frame, like for like an hourly report. And then I have the count of the circ, but then I have the distinct count of the patrons. that checked out those items. So one column is like the checkout library, the next is the distinct count of patrons, and then the third column is the count of circ. And so what that does is it doesn't give me every single time a patron checks something out. It tells me the distinct checkouts per person. So instead of like Mary Smith has 1, Mary Smith has 2, another circ, Mary Smith has a third circ, it's Mary Smith, and then she has 3 circs. Does that make sense?
Is that different from nullability?
Yes.
Okay.
Nullability is very confusing, and even I can't explain it. There's a whole
Okay.
there's
Yeah,
a
I don't want to
whole
get into
thing
the
on it.
weeds, but
Yeah, that
Alright.
one is tricky. And nullability really you only use for like the only reason I ever used it is for statistical category reports. So, but Mary Beth, does that answer your question? Like,
I think so.
okay, it's like the unique times that something happened, rather than every single transaction.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
What is the difference between the total circulation count and then if you did copy ID and then count for the transform?
Oh, this one was probably a very bad example. So copy ID, that is an integer. I would have to look into this one. I think that, I'm sorry, that was a bad example on my part, but
That's okay.
total circulation probably is already counting the total circulation, so you probably wouldn't need to do a count. And then copy ID is just the individual copy ID attached to that individual item. But it's also count.
Okay. So
Yes.
if you were to do copy ID, you would want obviously the count, because that's usually what I do.
Yeah. So this is the total circ count table. So you would want copy ID. Yeah.
So then for total circulation, like, I guess what I'm asking is, can they be used interchangeably?
No. Well,
Okay.
in this table, you're looking at just items,
Right.
individual items. So if you wanted
Yeah, if you were running often what we do is if we're looking for circulations, we use circulation as our top source. And then because that's giving you, like, you could use that to give you a list of circulations, what you want is a count of lines effectively in the list of circulations. And so that's why we use count of circ ID and not count distinctive circ ID, because if one James Patterson title went out 6 times, we want to know that.
Right.
But if you think about the item status details screen, it's got that hover over for total circulations.
Okay, that makes sense.
What that subtable Elizabeth is looking at is that count. It's just the only thing in that subtable is that count, and it will include legacy sometimes if they've come over. Like we were looking at one today that had 6 circs on it, but no date for any of the circs. So that's actually going to get you something a little bit different. So they're definitely not interchangeable, but in that particular table, those are the only 2 things that are in that table. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Because I always was using circ ID and then count for circulations, but I wasn't sure if at one point, like when I basically wasn't sure when to use total circulation count. So you've answered that. So thank you.
And so, yeah, so if it is, say, a weeding report and you want every single checkout, regardless of when it was, then you should use that. Most of the time when we're running circ reports, it's linked to the date. And so we wouldn't want to use that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That does help clarify.
Okay. Sorry to butt in, Elizabeth.
It's okay. So we can talk about sources too. So when you're if you're building a template from scratch, let's do that. Or you're rebuilding a template, that would be also an instance when you're doing this. Obviously, you create a new template for this folder. You name it, you put your description. And the first thing you'll want to do is pick your source. So there are core sources, and those are the ones that get used most often. So going forward, this combined aged and active circulations will be kind of your go-to for circulation, especially if you want historical stuff. But before you even pick your source, you're going to want to make sure you think out and plan what you need in your template. Think about all of the elements that you want to see in the display side, and then how you want to narrow down that information. So if you say, I need a weeding report, what does that mean? Does that mean you want the title, the author, the circ modifier, the shelving location, the barcode number? Do you want the date it was added to the collection? Do you want the last circulation date, the last inventory date? Do you want, trying to think. I think that's usually what I put in weeding reports. But then how do you filter out that down to just those specific items? So are you filtering on the owning library or the circulating library? Are you filtering out the deleted items, which is pretty much required in most reports? Because just because you deleted it doesn't mean it's gone completely from the database. It's kind of hidden, and literally reports is the only place you'll find it. So you'll want to weed those out. Are you narrowing it down by the circulation modifier? Are you narrowing it down to just the shelving location you're looking for? Things like that. So it's good to think about what elements you need before you kind of start digging and picking a source, because once you kind of have a framework for what you're looking for, it helps you narrow down which source you're going to be looking for. So if you're looking for a weeding report, you're looking for items. So you're going to want to start at the item level. If you're looking for a list of people, patrons, you're going to want to look at ILS user. If you're looking for circulation, numbers of things, you can use circulation, or in the future, you're going to be using combined age and active circulations. If you're looking for bib records, bibliographic record, stuff like that. And then there are other ones as well. But those tend to be the big ones. You can get pretty nitty gritty. And sometimes if you are looking at a source and you think you found the one you want, it's always good to kind of go through it before you start adding elements to make sure that it's going to have the things you want. Because sometimes the source is so specific, it's very narrow, and it only has a few elements to it. So it might be easier to go a little bit broader on the source so that you have more options to add extra fields. So for instance, say you're looking for information about items on a shelving location. If you pick the shelving location source, because that's what you're looking for, you're only going to get info about the shelving location, not anything on it, or anything like that. And you'll see there are copies on it, but it's actually easier to go about it from the other way and looking at the copies that are on the shelving location rather than the shelving location and what it contains. Because you'll have definitely more options. So you only have 3 joins on this shelving location, whereas if you went and did it on the item, you have a lot more. Wait, that's not the right item. You have a lot more. So chances are you'll get more info that you need from this table than the one specifically about shelving locations. And I will say that when you're building your template, it's good to start kind of broadly on your filters, filtering out the deleted, looking for like specific elements. And then once you know you have a good grasp and it's giving you the data you need in your outputs, you can start to narrow it down even more specifically. Don't go super narrow in focus. Start a little higher and then add filters as you go. So say you're looking for items on a specific shelving location, you can start by filtering, is it deleted, the owning library, and the shelving location. And then you're like, okay, it's giving me what I want. Now I'm going to add the circ modifier to the filters, and then you're going to get a smaller list. And then you're going to get maybe copy status, and then you're going to get a smaller list. So it's always easier to start big and then whittle down from there. So again, we have our items. You always start at the top. And usually it used to be a practice where it was kind of work your way down through the joins rather than like hopping back and forth in between them. So you'll like start at the top and add all the fields that are on the top here. So like the active date, do you want that? And then do you want the barcode of the item? You would add that. Do you need to know if it can circulate? And that rather than going down here and picking the circ mod and then going over here and asking if it has a holds count and then going over here and like just kind of be consistent and working from one join at a time. And then you can go back and forth between the displays and the filters to get those elements. Does that make sense? Okay. So I don't know if we went through the whole list of all of these icons, but for the most part, they're fairly like once you kind of start using them, you kind of get a little used to what they are. Like obviously the dollar sign is going to be a currency value. If it's just an A, it's just free text. Let's see. I don't think any of these have really weird ones. I have never tried this average wait time. I'm gonna have to try that one. But yeah, I don't think there's any in here that I haven't seen that aren't very common. But there is a chart on our help desk about what they all mean. So any questions about this in general? It's kind of hard to show a report without like a really specific use case. But anything people are curious about or like things that the one thing that it took me a while to learn is the title information for the items is you have to go down into the call number and then the bib record, and then you have to go down to simple record extracts. You kind of have to dig. This one's a long rabbit hole on that one. So like this is the source path that you would find it, and like this is what people would put in the in their description, like for every element that they picked. So when I say source path, this is what I mean. That they started at item and they went to call number and then they went to bib record and then they went to simple record extracts. Trying to think about any other tips or anything. If you are looking for open circulation, you'll want to go down to, so these are things that are not checked out or have not been checked in rather. So you'll look at open circulation rather than circulation and combined. So these are things that are actively still checked out rather than items that have been returned. So that's a better table or source for that information. The same with transaction summary. So like if you're looking for billing, the open billable transactions. So those are bills that have not yet been fully paid. So that's a good one for that.
Would an item that's gone to loss status still be listed under open circulation, or is that now under
Yeah,
open
no,
billing?
because it hasn't been checked. Well, you can do either or. So depending on what you're looking for, a lost item would still be an open transaction because it hasn't been checked in. When you check it in or delete it, that's when it closes. So if you're looking for the billing component, you would look at open billable transaction summaries. And if you need an info about the item more, then you would look at open circulation. Oh, thank you. Natalie has shared the links to the icons and such. Once you've saved a template, can you get back to this stage to edit it? Yes, you can. So that's the fun and not so fun part of reports is once you have a template, say you built it, you think it's good, you've hit saved and you're like, oh, it's not right. You're going to want to go back and edit it. So you will find where you saved it and you have to clone it again and it will take you back to the editor. So there's no edit in templates. It's just you clone it again and then you adjust it. Once you've set it up to run, which we really didn't go over yet, and say it's something that's reoccurring and you need to change it, like you need to add an email address or something to it, you can go to your outputs, excuse me, reoccurring, or whatever report folder you have it in, and click on the report name and edit it from there. So here's where I could put in another email address or something like that. And I would save it. Not save as new, because then you'll have two instances of the report running. So just save it.
I have a question.
Mhm.
It's kind of a specific question, but
Sure.
Some of the reports I have, and I find the templates, clone it, all of that, and then if I try to like create something off of that, sometimes there's a source path that I just can't duplicate sometimes. And it's one that says, like, for example, I have one that's ILS user, statistical category entries, and then inner, it says. And I just don't know where that comes from.
that one is because they used a nullability. So yeah.
Okay.
So then you have to check the box for nullability before you even start editing it.
Oh goodness. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I see something like that, find a different template, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, or you could ask us and we can fine tune it to what you want.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The nullability is hard because you have a child nullable, parent nullable, none nullable, and then you have that for every like element, and it's kind of like, oh man, and you have to like match them up correctly for it to work, and I'm not even gonna try. But if you do see that, if it says like hold request parenthesis inner, then that means there's a nullability was used in it, and you have to continue using it when you edit it. And sometimes if it's an older one, you have to just rebuild it completely from scratch.
Okay.
So not
That
fun.
Yeah, that at least explains it, because I've tried to I'm like, it would just add it, but I'd never get that inner. So at least now I know what it is.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. I used to have a Post-it on my desk, and I think I threw it out, what combo you have to pick to get inner, and I think it's like none and none and child. Forget. But yeah, just ask us and we'll get you one that'll work for you. Are there any other questions on the reporter as it is today? If you don't mind hanging out for a couple of minutes, I can show you what it will look like come this fall. And nullability is easier to use because it doesn't make you pick which it is. It's either nullability or not. So it's like a yes, no. So the reports is redesigned, and they use the same kind of overview they did for the simple reporter. So you still have your folders and you still have shared folders. The search though is a lot better. So if you did circulation, you'll see which folder it's in and then who owned it. So you can kind of you have a better chance of finding it rather than having to like guess which folder the person shared it in. So that's really nice. The templates, it's still a little work in progress, but once you're in your folder, you can select your options across the top or line selection, so like specific elements about a specific template from this menu. So if we wanted to do a new template, it looks like a little similar, but you have to pick your folder here rather than that introductory screen and then this. It's kind of compacting everything. And you'll pick your source. So let's do ILS user. And it's similar. You know, you have your display fields rather than like cut across the middle. It's over here on the right more. And then you can pick. So see how instead of the icons, it gives you actual words like integer. But the rest are kind of self-explanatory. Like the link, instead of the two little icons, it's the actual word link, which is nice. And if you wanted to use nullability, you would just check the box, which is nice. And there's no option, it's just the one kind of join. So the most popular ones. So it should work as you need it. And then if you needed to go down into the table, that option is still there. And then you still have filters. Again, all those same options. And then you have your layout. So if you picked let's see, you know, is deleted, is a juvenile, and then we want to display the last name and the first name. You can change the order and the sort order. So if you wanted the first names first, you can easily move them around. You can still do your transforms. And here it's kind of giving you that source path too, again, kind of underneath it. So if you do change it, well, this one was always first name, but say instead of last name, you wanted surname, you have that path underneath that it was called last name originally and you changed it. And then you can decide how it's going to sort. Like, is it going to base the sorting on the last name by alphabet or by the first name? So this will be coming in the fall, and we'll obviously provide additional training on that. But some of the pain points that people were having with the other one are alleviated or improved. in this version of the reporter. And this is available for testing. I can share the info with Natalie to share with the rest of the group. So if you do find anything odd in your testing or workflow, you can file a bug about it so that it kind of gets in the queue for development.
So, question.
Mm-hmm.
Are all of our reoccurring reports and all that going to be transferred over?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Now that is with the caveat being everything will transfer over, but if you're running really old templates like on those Zool client or
Oh,
the
yeah.
ones that you'll want to make sure that those are updated before you
Oh, yeah.
before we
Definitely.
migrate.
Yeah. Okay, but anything that's like a web staff template
Mm-hmm.
and report should get moved over correctly?
Yep.
Okay. What could you show us quickly like where in like the report builder, like what that would look like? Does that still look the same?
That's this. Oh, the builder?
Yeah, like the actual report where you could like whether it's reoccurring, that kind of stuff.
Yes. Let me new report. And then it would be this. So it always
Okay.
defaults to the filters. And so the checkout renew library is in a list. And so you would pick, well, I want all of these elements. And then you have the checkout date and it's in between. So I would like, and you would pick the dates in the format that it's indicating on, year and then month. Because the transform is month. And then this one apparently is based on billing amounts. So a billing amount greater than $15. And then you would hit next. And then it says you have to indicate the folders it lives in.
Okay.
And then you would, your options are still the same here.
Okay.
Pivot table options are still there. And then the option to put your email is still there.
Okay.
And then if you want it to be reoccurring, those fields don't display until you've checked the box.
Okay. I haven't used the simple reports builder very much, so so
Yeah.
that's why I'm looking at all this now because I'm like, oh, okay, it mimics a lot of the simple report. So okay.
Yeah.
I'm so used to going top to bottom that I'm gonna have to go left to right now.
Yeah, now you're gonna have to use the vertical
Yeah.
or the horizontal. So
Yeah. I'll get used to it. I just have to get used to it.
yeah, that's the only thing. So once you're in you kind of see which columns will be displaying.
Oh,
And then
wait, how'd you do that?
it's
Sorry.
columns.
Okay, is that in the report
filters.
builder still?
This is the report builder.
Oh, okay.
So columns,
Okay.
filters. Yeah, because it used to like summarize up at the top what columns you're gonna get, and no one ever
Yeah.
looked at it.
Yeah.
And now it's
Okay.
gonna show you.
Aha. Oh, I do like that in terms of like if you needed to look at someone's template, it kind of tells you more of the source, like where they got it from. That's nice. Okay, nice. I'll
And
get
then
used to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send out this. This is a public server that you can test with
Okay.
Equinox. So if you find any bugs or you want to run stuff on it, I will say that this is all concerto data, so it's all musical based. So the items are not like James Patterson, it's like Chopin and like Mozart. And like the people well, Chopin and Mozart are normal names, but they're not but the holdings and stuff are all musical. So yeah, they don't work. So you have to pick or a musical instrument or something like that. Okay. So the data will be slightly different and trickier to run. But at least you can test it out.
Okay. Interesting.
So again, this is just as a heads up that this is where we were going to in the fall. But we will go all there together. So I think it'll be okay. A lot of people are excited about this development.
I will say I do like that there's more information in terms of where things are coming from, because that was like, that's been my biggest pet peeve is like, it's like, okay, well, where did this template come from? I don't know. Let's do a search. Oh crap. You know,
Yeah,
so like that this is, I will say I'll get used to it because I appreciate the information that's there. That makes it a lot easier to help move things forward. I like that. Cool.
So, are there any questions about the current reporter or the new reporter that's coming, the redesign, if you will? I don't want to keep anybody too long, but
Is there a date yet in place for 3.13?
the beta is out now. The stable or the master or whatever they call it, 3.13.0 is not out yet, but it should be out next week. And then we will load it onto the test servers, and then we'll have a call to for volunteers to test things out. But the main upgrade for everyone is in November. We don't have a firm date yet, but it's always in November. Oh yes, Katie remember, we upgrade in November. Which if you're a Alan Moore fan, it's remember the 5th of November. So, any questions?
Okay.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank
really,
you.
really, that was very helpful. After so many years, and reports still are.
Yeah, I learn that every day. I
a
hear
tricky
something
thing.
new.
Exactly,
So, yeah.
something new. Exactly. So, does anyone have any other questions or things they want to bring up before we wrap up?
And I can hang out for a couple of minutes if you want to ask something off the record. I'll turn off the recording once Natalie finishes.
Well, if no one has anything else, then we can wrap this up. So thank you again, Elizabeth, and thanks everyone for attending. I'll be sending out an email for our next quarter, the date and topic a little way down the road. So happy early summer to everybody, but hope everyone has a good summer and be in touch. So thanks again. And I also want to say, if you ever do have any questions, not I'm saying like down the road in summer, but please don't hesitate to reach out if you ever have any questions, issues, whatever it may be with reports. You could reach out to me directly, to the reports listserv, to Spark support, but I'm more than happy to always be there for whatever you may need. So feel free to reach out anytime. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Bye, thank you.